I'm Cathy Couey, Councillor with the Town of High River, and I'm joined today by Melissa Ayres of McElhaney Consulting Services. Thanks for joining me, Melissa. We're going to talk about a little bit about our Land Use Bylaw. The town is undertaking a rewrite of our Land Use Bylaw because we are working to redefine the town to be different. We understand the rule book needs to match our goals and the principles. Principles such as ensuring high-quality design that will last generations, understanding the importance of our public spaces, and creating a walkable community. Melissa, how can our Land Use Bylaw achieve this?
So let's focus on walkability because that embraces all of those different principles. It's a big concept, but it has a lot embedded in it. When I talk to people about walkability, they always tell me about walking down a beautiful tree-lined street with a lot of activities, a nice comfortable sidewalk that has enough space for them to actually walk on it, or two people side by side, or even past people. It's a big element of that. And to me, that means places that are safe and comfortable for everybody. In essence, it's about choice.
Yeah, absolutely. How is walkability about choice?
Well, choice is about making sure that our spaces are designed for everyone. And right now, our spaces are typically designed around cars. And we think about the people who drive cars. Not everybody that we know can drive a car. You know, key elements of our population that we associate with are our seniors and children in particular. They don't either have access to or cannot drive a car. And so how do they experience our town? It's different than for those of us who do have cars or can drive a car. And even for those of us who do, walkability is about having the choice to not have to drive a car. Now, we know that cars are an essential part of our life. We're not saying that we shouldn't plan for them in any way, but it is about bringing them into balance with people and how we design for our people and making sure that our daily needs are within a walking distance. So if you want to go down the street to get a jug of milk or go for coffee with a friend, that you can do that. And you don't have to drive your car in order to do that. In essence, it's about opportunities for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that sounds like a lovely idea, but how can that really happen?
Well, when we think about our shared spaces, which is our public realm, the places where anybody can go when you leave your house to go to your grocery store, go to work or school, you use these spaces. And those spaces make up about 40% of our land base, which is huge within the town. Now, right now, of that 40%, the majority of it is still designed for our cars. Again, as opposed to our people. So when we talk about safe and comfortable environments, people don't typically envision cars. They typically envision where you walk and how you interact with those spaces. And again, it's about the wider sidewalks. Street trees are an incredibly important element, and we've heard that from the town over and over again, both administration and the public, about the importance of street trees. Bringing our buildings closer to our street help us frame that space. The more space you have in that environment, the less you can feel safe and comfortable. It is just about confining it appropriately. And adding windows and doors and those elements of buildings that actually increase permeability. So we call it activation of the street, where you have windows and doors, because now all of a sudden you have activity happening. If you have a blank wall, it's just a blank wall. You can't interact with it in any way. And so the more windows and doors you have, the more permeability and activation you have. So it's about creating a space for everybody that's safe and comfortable.
So we've got pretty buildings, we've got sidewalks lined with trees, but does that really create a walkable town?
It's an important element, but definitely not the only one. More importantly, I would argue, is actually creating a place to go. So when you leave your house, where do you want to go? You don't typically just leave to go for a walk. Sometimes you do, and that's lovely, but you want to have a place to go. That is, your coffee shop, to get your glass of milk, pick up your dry cleaning, your kids from daycare, go to school, go to work, all those things, go to church, the things you do on a day-to-day basis that you want that would be nice to have within a walking distance of your home. So in essence, to create destinations, there are two components to that. Places where people go. A lot of civic or institutional uses. That's sometimes your open space, your parks, your recreation, hospitals, even, like the more institutional uses, those become destinations. But one of our key elements that we're considering is those businesses that we've talked about. And that also factors into the town's sustainability from an economic perspective in terms of creating economic development, revitalizing the downtown, those sorts of things. Businesses tell us all the time they want flexibility. They are typically operating with small margins, and so they don't have a lot of opportunity to, go from place to place to place, and they want, one place to meet their needs. So in order to meet that, the bylaw has to be flexible as well. It has to provide opportunities and choices for where businesses can locate. So that's one of the key elements, and in essence, that means mixing uses.
And I know that this is a real concern for some of our residents. Why would I want a scrapyard beside my house?
That is definitely one of the worst case scenarios, but flexibility is not a free-for-all. So I just want to emphasize that there are still some uses that should not be mixed, such as more industrial uses. And those are uses like industrial use that produce what we call off-site impacts. So if you cannot contain, the noise, odor, vibration, whatever it is that's going to bother your neighbors within your building, those get to go someplace else. If you don't do that, then we can consider or reevaluate where those lines go between how we define where uses go. And traditional bylaws separate uses. You have your residential uses, your commercial uses, your industrial uses, and you put them all in different places. But you need the residential and the commercial in particular support each other. They go together, they function together on a day-to-day basis. So we need to rethink what that looks like. The businesses need the people to come to them. And the research has shown actually that walkability and creating walkable spaces in business environments actually increase sales and support your businesses. So it brings people back to your downtown if businesses locate there and people walk to it as opposed to driving to it, because not very often people will get out of your car if you're not intending to go there anyways. So it increases businesses. But the important aspect about mixing uses is scale and intensity. And we have to get that right, so that we can get the uses to the appropriate scale for a residential neighborhood as opposed to a downtown or more of a regional shopping center. You still don't want a big box, Canadian Tire right next to your house, and that's not appropriate. That's not what we're advocating. But you do want your doctor's offices, and you do want your daycares and the things that you need on your day-to-day basis close to you.
Absolutely. It's very separated right now, as you mentioned. So walkable places need to be safe, and they need to be comfortable environments and a destination. But cars really are still our primary mode of transportation. That means that we need spaces to park them. So what does this all mean in regards to parking?
Parking is a big issue, and always is a big issue. There is a saying that form and density are both defined by parking. It takes your land use, your land base that you have from a design perspective, and all of a sudden focuses a certain amount of that on how much of that land you have to dedicate to where you're going to park your car. Whether it's a residential use or it's an apartment building or a big box retail, there's a lot of land that's dedicated to parking. There is a cost to that, and typically an indirect cost that we don't see. But it's important to note because parking increases the cost of our homes, it increases the cost of our consumer goods, and it increases our property taxes. So all of those elements, we end up paying for parking over and over and over again. So all we're saying is that we need to rethink parking and what that means in more of a mixed-use, sustainable community. Most importantly about parking and parking lots and those sorts of things, how does that fit into your image of a walkable space? Do you see a parking lot in your mind when you think about a place that you want to be safe and comfortable? Typically not. They're just places of convenience. So we just want to rethink what that really is. And again, even look at parking lots in how people use them when they get out of their cars to go into the store. What does that really mean? And we've definitely done some design work there. There's a lot of good examples, but we can do more. And so we're looking at those sorts of things to help every element of the town become walkable.
And that all makes great sense. And we've talked a lot on council about the type of community that we want to build. And this is really another key step in ensuring the success of that and long-term sustainability. When will we get to see this new bylaw?
We're writing the bylaw right now. So we're looking at a release date late September, early October. We will have some public events, so it will also be available online. So there'll be various methods for people to take a look. The biggest thing that I'm sure people will want to see is the new zoning map, because the entire town will be rezoned. Right now there's 28 districts, I believe, in the Land Use Bylaw. We are definitely bringing that down. It's not confirmed exactly how many, but we're looking more around the 6 to 8 mark. So it'll be very different.
That's great. I want to thank you for your time that you're putting into this and for taking the time today to help us kind of share the information on this. Is there anything else that you'd like to share or we should know about the bylaw?
One key element is that the new bylaw will be available online, both the written portion of it and the mapping portion of it. So the first thing that people see is they'll be able to go online to a digital map where they can actually find their property, like you can on Google Maps, find their property, but click on it and then it will take you to your zoning and all of the appropriate regulations that will all be there. The bylaw itself will also be very visual in nature, lots of pictures, so that every rule, every regulation will be explained to some degree. A lot of basically easy to read, take out a lot of the legal language and just bring it back down to a basic understanding and interpretation so that anybody can look at it and know what the rules are, for sure. So very easy to read and very accessible.
Well, it absolutely sounds fantastic. I'm very excited to see it, and I want to thank you again, Melissa.
Thanks, Catherine.